Y'all give it up for him.
You guys, I need this one. I need them to.
All right, mic check, mic check. How's everybody doing today? I'm so excited to be speaking at the Lux Lunch, right, for Seven Figure Educator about a topic that I think everyone needs to understand, right? And as you understand this topic, you will be able to accelerate the growth of your business, right? So we're going to talk about the financial dream team, who you need and when you need them to scale, right? But before we jump into that, we got to talk about myself a little bit, right? I'm Ephraim McBelly, CPA, Managing Director and Founder of EFS Group PLLC, where we help our clients manage their money so that they can scale their businesses with confidence. And I'm a University of Houston graduate. I'm a Texan, right? I love it. I'm from Dallas originally, but I've been in Houston for a long time now, so I'm pretty much a Houstonian, right? Graduated from University of Houston. I was in corporate America. I worked for Pricewaterhouse, a Big Four accounting firm, for about a couple years. But how many people remember the last time we had a bad economy, back in 08, 09? Okay. So I was one of the casualties of war during that time. I got let go from my job. And for 6 months, I was looking for my next opportunity. And nothing fell into my lap, right? It got so bad that the recruiter that I was working with at Robert Half told me, Ephraim, the economy's so bad, I don't think that anyone's going to be able to find work for 18 months, right? And when he told me that, I was like, whatever, that's them, it's not me, right? I'm confident, I'm cocky, but I got humbled. 6 months, couldn't find work. And then one day I woke up and said, I'm no longer looking for a job or whatever, right? I'm going to go start my own business. Everyone back then thought I was crazy for doing so, but I did it. I started a tax business, and it grew to the point where we were working with 800 to 1,000 people, right? And a lot of them were small business owners. So a lot of them would come to me and they would say, Ephraim, we love what you're doing. I love coming to see you, but I only see you once a year. Can you do more for me? Can you help me with the bookkeeping and all the things that are in my business, right? So that's when the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, I need to pivot. And I need to still do taxes, but really have a focus on businesses versus individuals, right? So that's where, I pivoted around probably about 10 years ago, and I really dove deep into that. And so I built out my team. And right now we have about 17 people in the company, one of them being my wife. And let me show you my family. Oh, there we go. Here's my family, proud father and husband, twin boys. They'll be 7 in December. And fun fact, my wife is a CPA as well, right? So she's a secret weapon in my business, right? She was also at Pricewaterhouse. So that's kind of how we had a common bond, right? I met her at an accounting convention. People, that are not educators think that that's nerdy, right? But that's some of the best places to meet someone, right? So I met her there back in 2006, chased her around for a year. And then she finally said, no, literally, I was literally like trying to get her to like have a conversation with me after she gave me her number. And then she finally conceded because I told her, I remember she told me, I'm going to be starting at Pricewaterhouse in September of 2007. And I remember that. And I told her, I sent her a text. I was like, look, whenever you start at Pricewaterhouse, make sure you add me on Instant Messenger, right? And I knew that if she did that I would get it, right? So that's how we were able to pretty much form a bond, and then here we are now, right? So that's the history of me and my business and how I got started. So the line items that we're going to talk about today, right? We're going to cover the different roles of your money team, the bonus money team roles, the differences between the money team roles, and last but not least, how my company, EFS, can be your financial engine. So why we're here today? Here are 5 reasons why we're here today. Role confusion burns money, right? There's a common misconception that whenever I hire a CPA or an accountant or whoever, that person is going to be able to do everything for me financially related. They're going to be able to do my books. They're going to be able to prepare my taxes. They're going to be able to help me not pay any taxes to the government. They're going to be able to help me forecast, budget, do all these things that we expect, right? But how many people know that all those different things that I just said are specialties? Whenever you're going to the doctor, you're not going to the same doctor in ER that you're doing like your regular checkup every single year. right? There's different specialties. If you have a car accident, you're not going to an immigration attorney, right? There's different, I hope you're not, at least, right? Right, there's different specialties that people specialize in, and understanding that unlocks a lot of things, because now you're able to say, you know what, this person that I have here is good at this, and I'm going to bring this person in that's good at this, and I'm going to put them all together to form a money team for me. It's going to be able to help me propel my business. Next, DIY finance backfires. How many of you have QuickBooks and have tried to do bookkeeping yourself? It's a lot of people, right? So there's nothing wrong with doing that in the beginning of your business, but as you grow, like Dr. EJT says, it makes sense to bring in people that can help support your business. No strategic finance partner. This is a common one that I always hear from a lot of people. Ephraim, I'm working with my bookkeeper, but they're not helping me put together things to help me grow. They're not having conversations with me. They're not meeting with me, right? That is a specific skill set that a lot of accountants are not going to tell you that they can't do. Because if they tell you that they can't do that, guess what you're going to do? You're going to leave and they're going to lose money, right? So the transparency that a lot of accountants don't have, I'm here to bring that to you guys today. Next, compliance versus growth, right? A lot of times we hire people that are coming in and they do compliance work, right? Such as prepare your taxes and submit it to the IRS. Do your bookkeeping so that you can understand, your numbers and things like that. But what if you had someone on your team that actually helps you grow your business, right? That helps you to understand, like, here's what happened historically in your business, and here are the things that you need to do in order to move your business forward. Because we all have goals in our business, right? Like every year, like Dr. EJT says, you should do annual planning. And then when you do annual planning, guess what? You come up with your revenue goal. But are we meeting with our finance team to help them know, like, here's where I'm trying to go, help put a plan together financially to help me reach that? Next, scalability issues, right? I work with a lot of businesses. I worked with hundreds and hundreds of businesses over the years. And you have so many people that, they don't know, but they try to scale their business with a tax preparer or a bookkeeper, right? So knowing when to scale, when to say, I'm going to bring in this person to help me do these things in the finance department makes sense, right? And so imagine if you could have the right people, the right task, the right cost on your money team. Imagine if you had real-time financial clarity in your numbers. Imagine if you had strategic growth planning, right? A partner, someone that could come in and really partner with you. I like to say that, we like to partner with our clients. We're their partner with no equity in the business, right? Like we have their best interests at hand, and we are here to help them to realize their growth, right? So imagine if you had that. Imagine if you had more time to focus on your zone of genius. As a CEO, why are we doing our bookkeeping? Why are we preparing our taxes? Why not hire someone to do those things and take that off your plate so you can focus on marketing, you can focus on sales, you can focus on growth, you can focus on strategy. These are the things that as CEOs we should be doing. And then last but not least, imagine if you could have higher profits and stronger cash flow, right? Because as you have your money team together, that helps you to understand what's going on in your business at any given moment so you can make the right decisions in your business. Now, I like to say accounting is the language of business and finance is the decision-making engine of a business, right? I didn't always start out in accounting, right? I'm a CPA now, but when I went to University of Houston, I started out as an engineering major. And I was doing that for 4 years. And then one day the dean of engineering called me into his office and he was like, your grades are so bad. We got to kick you out of here, right? But he did this in the middle of the semester, right? So I had about 15 hours and 12 of them were engineering classes and I got dropped from all of them, even though I was doing well. So I only had 3 hours for that semester. So I had literally, a semester's about 3 to 4 months. I had all this free time. I'm depressed. I'm like, I don't know what's next, because when I came out of college, when I came out of high school, I just thought, okay, engineering is the thing that I should do, right? So I'm sitting around trying to figure out my next move. And a friend of mine, I had a conversation with him and he said, my uncle is a CPA and he makes a lot of money. He has his own business. I think you should consider doing that, right? And as I started to do more research, I started to realize that accountants understand business at a different level. And I always told myself that engineering wasn't something that I wanted to do forever. I wanted to eventually be in business. So I said, you know what? I think accounting is where I should be. And that was the best decision that I ever made in my life. Because if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have met my wife, right? I wouldn't have had the business that I have now. I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of things that I'm able to do now, right? So we understand that accounting is the language of business, but a lot of people don't know that finance is a decision-making engine. And when you bring them together, that's your superpower in growth and being able to scale. So we're going to talk about the different roles of your money team, right? The very first role that the majority of people have, that they start out with, and many of you, I'm sure, have someone in your life that does this for you, is a tax preparer. A tax preparer essentially is a compliance person, right? They come in and they say, I'm going to do your taxes, your individual personal tax returns, your business tax returns, and I'm going to make sure that they get filed on time by the deadline, right? So when we think about personal tax returns, those are 1040s. You guys familiar with 1040s? Business tax returns, we have 1120S's. Those are corporation tax returns. We have 1120 tax returns. Those are corporate returns. We have 1065s. Those are partnership returns. And then we also have single member LLC tax returns. How many of you are single member LLCs in the room? Okay. So that is done on your Schedule C, which is put on your 1040. So when I meet with a lot of people, they don't understand that. They think that, okay, I'm a Schedule C or I'm a single member LLC. I should have a separate tax return. But we have to educate and say, no, it's not separate. But once you become an S Corp or you become a corporation and you start to pay yourself a salary, then now you file a different tax return, right? So your tax preparer does all these things for you, but their main goal, they're not going to tell you this, is not to help you tax plan, but it's to help you make sure that everything is prepared and filed on time. But the common misconception is, oh, I came to you in February, I came to you in March, and you tell me that I have a $50,000 tax bill. Why didn't you do anything about that? Well, I don't have that skill set, right? And you pay me $300 to focus on doing taxes, right? So that's where the clarity needs to come from accountants. And I put on here that most entrepreneurs start with a local company like H&R Block, but hopefully all of you in here have a CPA or someone that you're working with that's outside of the Liberty Taxes, the Jackson Hewitts, and H&R Blocks, right? That's a good starting point, but it's good as your business grows to move into working with a licensed professional. And so here's some of the roles and duties that tax preparers are responsible for, right? They prepare quarterly and annual reports for clients. They collect data from income statements and expense documents. They complete clients' tax documentation and review for errors. They research new tax trends and regulatory changes, and they ensure compliance with government tax rules. For companies to hire someone to do their taxes internally, the median average salary is $58,500. So I'm going to be telling you guys the salaries for all these roles so you understand, like how that works, right? The next role that you should have on your money team is a bookkeeper. How many of you have a bookkeeper? Nice. So a bookkeeper is a record keeper, right? So essentially what they do is they come in, they have a meeting with you, they connect your bank accounts and your credit cards to QuickBooks or Xero or any accounting software. And then they go in and they reconcile everything for you and they put them in the right accounts. One of the things that they also do, or that they should be doing if they're not, is making sure that the bank statements and credit card statements match what is in QuickBooks. That's something that a lot of people don't realize that their accountants or their bookkeepers are not doing, right? So when that happens, you have inaccurate information. I've seen financial statements where I'm looking at the balance sheet and it says the person has negative $20,500 in their account. That's possible. But when I look at their bank statements, I see that that's not actually real life. So why are you as a bookkeeper making sure that that's not being accurately put together? Because we as CEOs, we're taking these statements to the bank. We're taking them to lenders. We're taking them to people that, let's say you want to sell your business. They're going to look at your financial statements. Let's say you want to bring in someone to invest in your company. They're going to look at your financial statements. So if they're not being prepared properly and accurately, that's a big deal, right? So like I said, your bookkeeper prepares basic financial statements like an income statement and balance sheet. But many entrepreneurs purchase QuickBooks but never use it, right? We talked about that earlier. Some of the roles that bookkeepers are responsible for, they use bookkeeping software, spreadsheets, and databases. They assign debits and credits to the proper accounts. They produce basic reports. They check accuracy and reconcile discrepancies. And they maintain an accurate record of financial transactions, right? One of the things that I didn't say that bookkeepers do is analyze financial statements. We're going to talk about that next. But before we go into that, a bookkeeper's median salary, $43,800. You look at it and be like, that's low? Yeah, $43,800 to hire a bookkeeper into a company, right? Next role of your money team, you need to have an accountant. So what does an accountant do? An accountant takes the financial statements that the bookkeeper prepares and analyzes it for you so you understand what happened historically in your business, right? And that's important to know because your financial statements tell you what has happened in your business up to a specific time and point. It doesn't tell you about the future, right? And so it tells you, let's say you run your income statement from January 2025 through December 2025. You're going to understand what happened, right? If you're looking at it from month to month or throughout the whole year, you're going to understand what happened throughout that whole year. And your accountant is someone that comes in and they analyze it, they interpret it for you so that you have a better understanding, right? How many of you have regular meetings with your accountants where they go over these things with you? You said, yeah. So you should be meeting at minimum with your accountant once a month. At minimum. We meet with our clients once a month, twice a month, 4 times a month, depending upon what plan they're in. But you need to have transparency in your numbers, right? So a lot of times we hire bookkeepers and we expect them to do this, but they're not skilled in doing that. But they're not going to what? Tell you that they're not skilled in doing that because you're going to what? Leave. And we don't want you to leave. We want that money, right? So accountants analyze the financial statements so you understand what's happening historically. And most, like I said, most entrepreneurs expect their bookkeeper to perform accounting functions. And here's some of the roles, some additional roles. They examine financials for accuracy and compliance. They inspect accounting systems. They organize, analyze, and maintain financial records. They suggest ways to reduce costs and improve profit. Then they prepare written reports and meet with management and clients. So how many of you, if you were to guess what the salary for an accountant is, what would it be? 100,000? 75, 65? 81,680. The money is not in doing the compliance stuff, right? The money is in doing the analyzing, the interpreting, right? So 81,680. Here's another role that should be a part of your money team once you get to a certain level. And that's the Chief Financial Officer, the CFO. How many of you have heard of what a CFO is? How many of you have a CFO in your business? Okay. So a Chief Financial Officer is someone that uses the financial statements that the bookkeeper prepares and strategizes with the CEO on how the business can grow, right? So I talked about how the accountant looks at everything historically. The CFO is more finance related. They're more forward thinking. They're more forecasts, budgets, right? Maximum revenue capacity. They're looking at those kind of things. That's the skill set that they have, right? So most entrepreneurs need this person in their life, but don't even realize it. Some of the roles that they do, they work with the management team, right? The COO, the CEO, to focus on business performance. They focus on ensuring business has adequate cash flow and cash reserves, right? Your CFO makes sure that whatever crazy decision that you want to make in your business, that you are supported, right? Like if we're going to make this decision and we're going to go out there and we're going to spend $500,000 on marketing, do we have cash reserves put to the side if that doesn't pan out? The same way that we would have the cash reserves in our personal life. Your CFO makes sure that that happens. They put plans and things together for that. They review pricing and they calculate maximum revenue capacity. They influence company strategy and partner with the CEO on forecasts. And then they prepare budget to actual analysis, right? everybody should have a budget, and you should be comparing it to what actually happened every single month. And they business activity reports and forecasts, and then next, they monitor financial KPIs, right? So the KPI is extremely important. Knowing your return on asset, knowing your return on equity, all these things, they're the ones monitoring that and presenting that to you as the management team. They analyze market trends to maximize profits. They help the management make informed financial decisions, and they help with mergers and acquisitions, business valuations and selling of businesses. And they focus on compliance, quality control, business planning, and process changes. All these things are things that we have done or are currently doing for our clients, right? So if you are someone that wants to buy a business to join it into the business that you already have, are you having someone review that business's financial statements, right? If you want to sell your business, who are you going to help you to value it so that you understand what you're selling it for or what it's currently valued at that time? Your CFO can help you do all those things, right? So there's so many things that the CFO can do to help you grow the business. And a lot of people, we just don't know. We're not educated on, okay, what they can do. I want you guys to guess what the CFO's median salary is. 125. I heard 200. I heard 150. 175. CFO median salary, $195,500. There's some CFOs that I've met that make $300,000, $400,000, right? So it ranges depending upon the size of the company. Now we're going to talk about the bonus money team roles, right? These are roles that you might be doing right now at the moment that you could potentially hire someone to do inside of your business as it grows. Number one, bonus money team role is the tax strategist. This is the IRS's biggest nightmare, right? This person comes into your business and helps you to strategically throughout the year put a plan together so that whenever you do have those big goals of saying, I want to reach $2 million, $3 million. So you know how people say, I have these goals of making this amount of money, but I don't necessarily want to make that because I might have to pay all these taxes. So that mindset limits us. It stops us from growing. But imagine if you had somebody that was saying, don't worry about that. You can spread your wings and fly. You can grow. I have you on the back end. I'm planning and I'm putting these things together for you to make sure that when you do hit those levels, you're good from a tax perspective. That's what the tax strategist does for your business, right? So they do the most damage during the tax year, not at the end. So you don't want to go to your tax strategist. The normal thing that people do, like I said earlier, once December 31st hits and we say Happy New Year and it's the new year, March or April comes and then we take our stuff to our tax preparer. And then we get surprised when they say we owe all this money, right? But a smart person will say, a smart tax preparer will tell you, I can help you tax plan, let's pay this bill, but through the future years, we can sit together and we can tax plan. We can meet quarterly for an hour and I can look at your books and I can tell you, here's what you're projected to pay to the IRS if today happened, but here are the different strategies that we can put in place to make sure that you don't pay that, right? So imagine if you had your tax strategist working with your CFO, because a lot of times when we do these tax strategies, you need to have the money to do it. And if we're spending our money and we're not creating reserves, then we don't have the money to pull from to make all these strategies make sense. So some of the roles they do, like I talked about earlier, they identify deductions, credits, and entity structures to reduce tax burdens. They develop long-term plans, align with the company's growth timeline, and they collaborate with external tax professionals. What do you guys think the salary is for a tax strategist? $139,867 is the median salary. Bonus money team role number two, the payroll analyst. The majority of us are our own payroll analysts, most likely, right? Whenever you start your business. But this person is the person that makes sure that everyone gets paid. This is the person that makes sure that the vacation is being accrued for, the PTO, all the things that you have whenever you do payroll and you're working at a job, right? And then you have all these deductions from your check. They're the ones that make sure that all those things align and they're keeping track of all those things, right? So imagine as your business grows, you hire someone to handle all that for you so that you can have more time to do what? Grow the business, right? So they ensure timely and accurate processing of employee wages. They stay up to date with federal, state, and local tax laws, and they manage withholdings for benefits. Salary for a payroll analyst, $70,500. Money team role number 3, accounts receivable analyst. So accounts receivable analyst is essentially the person that makes sure that the company gets paid. Whenever I have a contract that I've signed with somebody, and now I'm sending that invoice, am I the one as a CEO responsible for chasing that money? I probably am in the beginning, but as I grow, I need to bring someone in to help make sure that that money gets collected. That person pays for themselves by how much money that they're able to collect in the most timely manner, right? Another thing too, whenever we look at financial statements, the balance sheet and the income statement, how many people know that there's cash basis and then there's accrual basis, right? So when we talk about cash basis and accrual basis, cash basis is essentially when your bookkeeper is doing your books and they're recording everything that hits your bank statements and your credit cards. And they show you, here's what's happening. But at a certain point in your business, you need to start looking at everything from an accrual standpoint, because the accruals will now tell you, here's how much money I have outstanding that hasn't been paid to me, right? And then here's how much money that I have outstanding that I need to pay out. You need to know all those things to know the overall financial picture of your business. Because if you don't, you're thinking you're good and you have a $100,000 liability that's about to hit you and you have no idea. So all those things are important, right? So the AR, the accounts receivable analyst, generates and sends accurate invoices. They monitor agent reports and they reconcile incoming payments to the correct customer accounts. Average median salary for that person is $65,381. Last but not least, the 4th bonus money team role is the accounts payable analyst. This is the person that makes sure all the vendors are paid, right? So when we talk about make sure all the vendors are paid, you have people on your payroll, you have contractors, but then what about the small bills that you have, like the rent that needs to be paid, the utilities? Let's say you have an event like Dr. EJT and she has a makeup artist. That's a vendor. That vendor is not a part of your company, but that person needs to be paid. Should Dr. EJT pay that person, or should she have someone on her team make sure that that person gets paid? That's where an accounts payable analyst comes into play, right? And so a good accounts payable analyst is able to make sure that people get paid, but not necessarily on time, if that makes sense, right? And the reason I say that is because they're protecting your cash. So the goal is to collect money as quickly as possible and to pay out money as slow as possible. That's the goal. It might sound crazy, but that's the goal, right? It makes perfect sense. So think about it like this, right? Let's say you are a retail company like a Lip Bar. Are y'all familiar with the Lip Bar? And she's in Target, right? So when you're in Target or you're in Walmart, what ends up happening? Now they're telling you, hey, because we're Target, because we're Walmart, we have this marketing engine. So we're not only going to squeeze you on how much you're going to charge us to be on the shelves, but we're also going to pay you later. Meaning we're going to pay you net 30, net 45, net 60. Why are these companies doing that? They're doing that because they're protecting their cash. And you got to protect your cash because you don't know what's going to happen. We just had a new president come in to office in January 1st that rocked and shook everything, right? There's a lot of people that probably went out of business because he came into office because they couldn't withstand what was happening. But if you have the reserves and you're protecting your money, these things you're in a good place, right? So they verify and they code, process incoming invoices, they maintain relationships with suppliers, and they work with the accountant and CFO to schedule payments with the cash availability and working capital goals. Salary for an accounts payable analyst, $77,269. I got a case study, right? We had a large e-commerce company reach out to us last year in October. And when he scheduled a call with me, he said, Ephraim, I just met with my accountant And he told me that I have a tax bill of $300,000 that potentially could happen. And I'm nervous. I don't know what to do because I don't want to pay all that money. If I pay all that money, I just feel like I shouldn't pay all that money, right? So I said, okay, let's open up your QuickBooks. Let's look at your QuickBooks on this call. So I'm looking at the QuickBooks and I'm seeing, first of all, everything's all over the place. Things aren't reconciled properly. Things aren't matching the bank statement, the credit card statement. And I'm like, okay, the number one thing we need to do is we need to get your foundation together. Your foundation is shaky. So let's go back all the way to January and redo your bookkeeping up to date, right? So we went back and did that. Found out that his tax bill just from doing that was cut in half. Then the next thing we did, once we did that, was because we still had about 3 months in the year, we put in some tax strategies. And so the tax strategies that we were able to put in brought his tax liability all the way down to $58,000. So he saved $242,000 just from having that conversation with us. And then obviously he became a client. He became a client and his business has grown exponentially, and we've been able to dive deeper and cover a lot more things, such as the margins, the pricing, just all these different things that he wasn't even having with his bookkeeper. But the expectation was that the bookkeeper was supposed to do all those things. But how are you supposed to do all those things and you're only charging $300? I'm supposed to pay your bills. I'm supposed to collect your money. I'm supposed to do your books. I'm supposed to prepare your taxes. I'm supposed to help you save money from the IRS. I'm supposed to help you do your bookkeeping. I'm supposed to help you forecast, budget. I can keep going. I'm supposed to help you do all those things. But me as the accountant doesn't even understand that I need to charge more for that. But me as the accountant doesn't even understand that I need to build out my team so that I can do all those things. Here's the money team, median salaries all put together, right? If you were a large business and you were trying to hire all these people in your company, it would total out to $732,497 from all 8 of those roles. And all the sources are in the graph right there as well. Okay, so we're gonna run through real quick the differences between the money team roles, right? Number one, we look at tax preparer versus a bookkeeper. Tax preparers work mainly during the tax season. Bookkeepers work year round, right? Tax preparers file tax returns. Bookkeepers record daily transactions. Tax preparation happens annually, quarterly. Bookkeeping is daily, weekly. So when we look at the bookkeeper versus accountant, bookkeepers record transactions, accountants interpret and analyze them. Bookkeepers maintain the general ledger, accountants prepare statements. And then the accountant and CFO role. Accountants analyze past performance and CFOs plan the future. Accountants prepare statements, CFOs develop strategy and guide investment. CFOs supervise accountants and bookkeepers because they sit in the C-suite and they sit on the executive team. Accountants are part of the finance team. The CFOs lead that team. Now, I want everybody to take out their phone and scan the QR code. I developed a wealth system last year. It's called the CEO Wealth System. And this system, if you have a business that's generating cash flow consistently and you follow these 4 C's, you'll be able to develop generational wealth for your family and yourself. And I know this because I've done this for myself and we're doing this for clients right now. So when we talk about the 4 C's, the financial matrix, you have the number 1 is charge your worth. Number 2, control your costs. Number 3, cut your tax bill. And last but not least, number 4, compound through investment, right? So that PDF covers all those things. And if you DM me today, 7FE, on my Instagram, then I'll send you that PDF literally after this presentation is over. 7FE. So if you DM, yeah, just yeah, so scan and then send me a DM that says 7FE so I know it came from this room. And then I'll email you the PDF. Does everybody have this QR code? All right. Now, here's how my company EFS can be your financial engine. Right, we're gonna go through that real quick. Like I was saying earlier, all of these roles are different skill sets, and it's the CPA's job to find people who specialize in these areas to help their clients meet their needs. A lot of accountants are trying to do everything by themselves. And I realized a long time ago, I've been doing this now for 16 years, that that's the wrong way to go. Me as a CEO, I need to be a talent developer. I need to be going out there to finding the best people on the market that can come in and help support the growth of my companies that I work with. Because I don't want to be that CPA that people outgrow. You see what I'm saying? Many of you have outgrown your CPA and don't even realize it because they're limited. And they've said, I'm only going to focus on this. I'm not going to get better at this. I'm not going to do this. Right? But imagine if that CPA said, you know what? I'm going to keep that focus on taxes and tax strategy, but I'm also going to go find a CFO. I'm also going to go find a bookkeeper, all these other people to support my clients so that they have all these things underneath one roof instead of having to work with 8 different people. Imagine how much different your businesses would be, right? So I want to talk about the revenue levels for your money team, right? Because this is an important conversation. A lot of people always ask, at what point revenue-wise should I add certain people on the money team to my business? And I just discovered yesterday that Dr. EJT has the E1, the E scale, right? And it's perfect because it's in line with this, right? So I think from my notes, if you are E1 through E5, right? If you're E1 through E5, the first level is for you. You need to have a bookkeeper and someone that does your taxes at minimum. If you're E6, tax preparer, bookkeeper, and you add the accountant. And then if you're E7 through E10, tax preparer, bookkeeper, accountant, CFO. Now, I will say, you don't necessarily have to follow that. Let's say you're somebody that you've come into your business and you've put money aside. You know, you brought your 401k money or whatever it is you're in, and you have money to invest earlier, then it makes sense to go out there and get the accountant and the CFO. But if you're someone that didn't do that, or you just kind of want to, take it slow, this is the revenue level that you can follow. Now, here's how EFS works with everyone. Number one thing we do is we do a financial fitness audit, right? So if someone fills out our form and they say, I'm interested in working with you or talking to you about how to work with us, we schedule a time and we talk, and then we do a financial fitness audit, right? So in that audit, I go in, I'll get access to your QuickBooks, I'll get access to your bank statements, everything that's private. I do send the NDA, right? So you feel comfortable with that. It's not going to be shared with anybody. And then I'm able to now do an audit, and I break it down in like 4 to 5 different categories, right? So I'm going to grade your bookkeeping, what it currently is. I'm going to grade the tax strategy that you have in place. I'm going to grade your profitability and your margins, right? And there's a few other, your payroll efficiency too. That's another category that we focus on as well. And then your cash flow health. How are all those things working? And then I give you a score, and I show you how much money is potentially being left on the table because you're not at 90 to 100. So already, before you even say, I want to work with you, you already have a plan of attack, right? So once we have that audit, now we know the areas of focus that we can focus on in your business when you start working with us. And then last but not least, whenever you hire us on, we help you to keep more of the money that you make. We help you to save more time, right? Because now you're outsourcing all these things to us. And then in turn, you scale your business and you grow, right? So here are the different plans that we have. We have 4 different plans. We have our priority bookkeeping. We have our starter plan, our intermediate plan, and our premium plan. So priority bookkeeping, E1 through E5, right? You start there, you have your bookkeeper. They come in, they do your books, and they present them to you every month. So you understand, here's where I'm at. And now you can use those books to do your taxes. You can use those books to go to the bank and get a loan. You can use those books to bring in an investor, right? All these different things. Next plan, we have starter, 250 to 1 million. I don't necessarily know the E's for that. I think it's like E6 through E7 or E8. that's where now it's like, okay, I'm making money in my business consistently. I think it's time for me to bring in an accountant. But also I think it's time for me to bring in a tax strategist as well to protect my money from the IRS. Then we have the intermediate plan, right? That's $1 million to $3 million in revenue. That's where it's like, okay, CFO now comes and joins that team. So you have your accountant, you have your bookkeeper, your tax preparer, your tax strategist, and your CFO. Then last but not least, once you get to that 3 million plus revenue level, you get the whole team. You get your tax preparer, you get your bookkeeper, your accountant, your CFO, and the bonus money team roles. You get the accounts receivable analyst, the payroll analyst, the tax strategist, the accounts payable analyst. All those people are on your team and they're helping you to accelerate your growth, right? So now you can reach the 5 million, the 10 million mark in your business. But I think a lot of times we don't necessarily know when's the right time to bring in certain key components to our business. And our accountants don't take the time to educate. Because accountants are similar to lawyers where it's like, well, if I'm going to take a call with you, I need to charge you an hourly rate, right? Or if I take the call with you, I'm not necessarily trying to educate you on that call. I'm more so trying to see, are you a good fit, right? I used to be that way, but I'm not that way anymore, right? As I realized that, you know what, it makes sense to develop packages and plans to where wherever you are in your business, you have a place and a home with us at EFS, right? So if you're ready to get your clarity around your finances, I want you to scan this QR code. And with this QR code, you'll get a link to where you can fill it out. And it's a small, quick questionnaire. I'll get the email and then we can schedule a call to where we can meet, probably about a 15, 30-minute call. And then we can do that free financial health audit. Next year, I will be charging about $2,500 for it. But right now it's free because it's still kind of brand new and I'm still kind of like testing everything out. And so far it's working really, really well. And it's valuable, right? It takes time. It takes time, but I'm giving it to everybody for free, right? So make sure you scan that code. And I appreciate you guys. Follow me on social media. Here's my Instagram page again. Anybody have any questions? Oh, a lot of questions. Okay. Go back. Okay. Question. Mm-hmm. Great question. It all depends at what level of growth you are, like revenue wise and things like that. You know, it might make sense to bring in a CFO and it might make sense to bring them in, let's say, as needed basis, right? So pay for one-off meetings or quarterly calls and things like that, you know? And then once you like leave the job, if you decide to leave, now you can have that person on your team and you can really accelerate the growth. You know, but I think for right now, you could do like an as needed basis. Yes. What might do? H&R Block, their main focus is for individuals, right? So everyday individuals that have a W-2 or two, right? The more complex stuff that's not the majority of their wheelhouse, right? And then a local person is somebody that potentially could come in and do a lot of things for you. But a lot of times, a lot of accountants don't really take the time to build out that team of people, right? So they might only be skilled in certain areas. Like there's a lot of accountants and CPAs that their main focus is taxes. I'm just gonna prepare your tax return and I might do some tax planning for you, but not really. I'm just really here to just do your taxes because I really don't want that relationship, right? Because that relationship comes with responsibilities. If you come to me once a year, I just get, it's like a side relationship, if that makes sense, right? If you come to me as needed. So it's not a responsibility for me. You come to me whenever you're ready to handle whatever it is you have to handle, and then we're done, right? So a lot of CPAs are like that. They don't necessarily want that relationship year round. They don't want the, thank you. They don't want that commitment.
This all I guess
Great question. Does anybody else have that question? That doesn't have any ramifications. So we have clients all over. A lot of clients in Atlanta, LA, Miami, Philadelphia, New York. It doesn't really matter. And that's the beautiful thing about being an accountant or a CPA versus like a lawyer where you kind of have to work with people, in your state. So yeah, tax law is federal, right? So it covers pretty much every single state. Great question. Anybody else? I think you raise your hand. I think that's, yeah. If you have an LLC, right, you're supposed to take minutes and have it agented, or if you have a corporation. So that definitely applies. Are a lot of bookkeepers going to do that for you? If you pay them extra, they'll probably do it, but that's not innately what they're going to like say, hey, this is part of my package or my service or whatnot. But yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. You definitely want to, like, every time you have meetings with your team or just in general, you want to document it. When it comes to being audited, we've had 2 people in the past 10 years get audited. And when they both were audited, because they were with us and because we were handling everything for them, the IRS thought they had something, but they didn't, right? Because we had all the documentation, we had their books together, we came in so prepared, they were shocked to the point where one of them didn't owe any money, and then the other person owed probably about $1,000, but that was because they forgot to give us a W-2, right? But if they gave us all their documents and we did all that, they would have owed no money as well, right? So the documentation is extremely important. You want to make sure you have all that together. If you have an assistant, have them be responsible for doing it, and have that filed somewhere that if anything was to happen, you have that. Even your receipts, your invoices, all those things, you want to make sure you have all those things together in the event of an audit. Yes. So your question is, how do you know when to go to the next level? Mm-hmm. It's based off the numbers where you are in the business and even your cash that you have reserved. I probably, even though I know you need a bookkeeper, I'd probably at this point do it yourself. You see what I'm saying? Or potentially, let's say, have something to where you pay them that one-time fee where they do the whole year. Just because, the money, right? Like you're bleeding the money, but you need that money to like grow the business, right? So imagine if you could reallocate that to marketing or something like that to where you could start generating revenue. This is coming from an accountant, right? Because accountants would just say, oh, you should pay the bookkeeper. But I'm also someone that says, I need something to account for if I'm the accountant. And if I don't have any money generated, then what am I doing accounting? I'm just really just putting expenses in certain accounts. Yeah. Right. No problem. You had a question? I think was it, or you? Okay. In front. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would say, so what we normally do is we develop something for every business that you have, right? So the nonprofit is its own business, so, well, I don't necessarily know what donor level you're at, right? But I know with nonprofits, if you don't have more than $50,000 donated into that nonprofit, you can file like the easy tax return, right? I forget, I think it's the 990 easy. Yeah, you can file the 990 easy, right? So you don't necessarily potentially need too much going on with that because that filing can be done. But then as it grows, and it does make sense to bring in like a bookkeeper to help with that. And then your business, you can have a bookkeeper, obviously, and then you can have, like the as needed financial things like the accountant or the CFO to come in and analyze. Is your goal to leave the job or is it to stay? Okay, nice. So the thing about you is that you have the income from your job to where you can support paying for these things. So I think it would actually make sense for you, depending upon what level, your business is and is what it's generating, to actually do that. I used to do nonprofit accounting, but then I realized obviously it's a different skill set, right? But I do partner with people that's their thing. That's all they do. And so they partner with us to like service our clients because nonprofits are also a tax planning strategy that you can implement. A lot of our clients have nonprofits and then we have someone handle that for them. No problem. Any last questions? Okay. Yes.
And do it. Is that I at
Yeah. Thank you for that. I agree with you. I agree. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.